Let's get a little weird. Let's get a little odd. Those sounds you like to hear. We got it going on. It's the Oddcast. It's the Oddcast. It's the Oddcast. It's the Oddcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Oddcast. I'm here with Gordon Holden. He's an artist. He's a clothing creator. He's kind of a Mr. Universal in terms of that type of creative stuff. He has an awesome company called consumecool. Welcome back to the Oddcast. Gordon, why don't you introduce yourself and how you doing?
Pretty good. Like you said, my name is Gordon Holden, and I have a art project brand called consumecool.
All right, and I'm actually wearing one right now. You can find him on Instagram at consumecool. There's links to his shop there. He has two really dope shops that we're going to get into a little more in a second, but the first shop has all the awesome clothing that Gordon's created, and then the second shop has his artwork, you know, canvas paintings.
Yeah, it's like wall and sculptural work.
Pretty incredible stuff. So that's at consumecool, and then is it consumecool.com?
Yeah, consumecool.com. It's
so
as easy as you can make it.
There you go. And we'll post them all up in the link. So let's talk back. I mean, it's easiest to start at the inception of, we were talking a little bit before about the inception of your transition from just doing art to doing the clothing. So talk about it first being kind of an artist and then how that transition happened.
Yeah, I think it's probably important to say like how old I am. And I'm 33, so when I was younger, I feel like you tend to be more experimental with things that you create, so you're just kind of all over the map with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't go to art school or anything, so I never really had this like preconceived notion of like, oh, I'm a painter, or I do this, or I do that. So I was just kind of like experimenting with things. And one of the things I made was the consumecool logo. And I just had some friends that were like, you should make stickers out of that. So I did.
Boom.
Yeah, exactly. So it turned into a thing that I would just kind of like give people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd always have a ton on me, so I'd just be like, oh, here's like a sticker.
Huh.
And
that's interesting.
From there, it kind of, I was focusing on some other work, but then from there I was kind of like, you know what, I should try to make this into something more than just kind of a sticker. So jumping off point was a sticker, and then, the rest is history, and still more to come,
Yeah, way more to come. It's pretty awesome to see like the work that's been coming out just on the Instagram page. That's where I've been following a lot of your work.
Yeah, totally. And it hasn't been that long. It's been maybe a month or so. You've kind of like checked out my stuff. And
yeah.
Yeah.
The most recent shirts that I saw on there were hilarious. How you posted the tweets of people who were like hating on the company or like didn't like your direction or whatever. It was hilarious.
So those were actual like comments that people put on my Instagram. So I had a bunch of t-shirts that I would post, basically appropriating like popular logos with the consumecool words.
Uh-huh.
And people would respond and just be like, oh, this is stupid, like you're a hack, this is like anybody could do this, it's not cool. But I think that's kind of the interesting point, is because consumecool itself is just recognizing what the masses are doing creatively, because you can look at Instagram and kind of recognize a pattern and be like, everybody's copying logos. Why are people copying logos? Maybe because it holds some kind of power or relevance to them and the people are communicating to, but I saw that and I was just like, I'm just going to imitate what everybody's doing with this like verbiage. And it's just funny how people kind of like negatively approach it, but it's at the same time like, it's great because that in turn becomes like the art, how people respond to it.
Of course. Is it in a sense, obviously you want to have more good comments than bad comments, but in a sense, publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, like you say, any publicity is good publicity, but
yeah,
it's, like when people like it, there's, I guess the way people respond to things can be, they like it, they dislike it, or they're apathetic towards it. That's the one you don't want, is when people just don't even care. And
okay, so that just means basically you didn't even gain a follower in any way. You
didn't evoke any kind of emotion or response from them. A negative response is actually better because they're thinking about it more.
That's interesting. I've spoken to a few stand-up comedians just
Yeah.
throughout the process of booking some interviews who have
Yeah.
said a similar thing in regards to that evocation of you want them to laugh or be horrified.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, how do you do that visually though? You know what I mean? And
That's crazy.
That's kind of what I'm trying to like tread into, like that territory.
Yeah, one thing that's cool about I feel like that's cool about your stuff is that it is definitely, you know, it's clothing, but I think it's art in a sense.
Yeah.
You were talking a bit about the difference of being an artist and being kind of a clothing designer.
Yeah, I mean, one's definitely a lot more, I would say, like I was talking about the supply chain, like you need to have all of these logistical things set up, and it becomes more of like a logical process where like being an artist is it's much more free-flowing, so there's more intuition that's involved, and things can just happen by accident, you know, happy accidents. Like as a business, nothing's a happy accident. It's everything is very planned. And
grind.
Yeah, because if it's not planned, you're gonna be late on your production, you're gonna be late on your shipping, you're gonna be late on all this stuff, and then people won't want to work with you anymore.
That's interesting too, and I think also like how you were saying how this shirt was created versus some of the recent stuff you've been doing that has the deeper production, like you were saying, that's more like a vertical scale production.
So it's outsourced, and I'd have like different types running, like screen printing or direct to garment, which is like inkjet on fabric, and then you basically just give the printer like quantities and the image that you want. Like where this shirt, like I said earlier, it was produced for the San Diego or Art Institute of San Diego in Balboa Park. Back when I did the show there, I want to say it was 2015.
Yeah, that setup looked awesome.
Yeah, so everything that was involved in that was all hand done. So it's like I said, it's that ready-made appropriation style where like I went out and bought the shirts at just a store. I printed the shirts myself and then did like cut them out into the heat transfer, like iron-on heat transfer. So it was all just very like hands-on. You know?
That's okay, and I mean, that's interesting though that you need to know like your target audience for that particular piece of clothing or that in order to do it in a way that's still, you know, gets your message out and is, you know, lucrative for you in a way.
Which is what's easier too. Like if you know they were like, oh, we need 1,000 shirts, I would not be doing that.
Really? Okay.
But because it was only like 40 or 50 of them,
yeah,
I was like, yeah, that's easily done. And I had a long period of time, because usually with like a store wholesale, like buyers would be like, oh, what's the soonest you can get it to us?
Wow.
You know, so that needs to be like done by somebody else.
Okay, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
How is the scene in terms of like working? I know a lot of artists don't work with other artists in terms of like painting and stuff, but how is that in terms of like the art community versus the clothing community, making that transition as being kind of a creator versus creator/businessman?
I think the art community is definitely more intriguing to me, and like working with people within it, because you have perspectives and you have different people can bring different ideas to the same table. In the business side of things with like fashion, it's very just like, you know, you want a buyer from a store to buy it, or you want people to buy, you know what I mean? Like it's a very like strict thing of like how it's done, you know?
Really?
Yeah, I mean, like
that
today's
scene must
day and
be
age,
wild.
like you can get popular on your own, right? But because I was talking actually with a friend yesterday about it, because he's an artist and we're actually going to be working on a consumecool project together.
Oh, cool.
And we were saying, he's like, you know, what's interesting is like in years past, or you know, times past, like art was in movements. So like there'd be a movement of art. It'd be like surrealism, or it'd be pop art. So there's a bunch of artists within that like collection of things. But he was like, oh, I don't think there's no movement anymore. And I was like, the thing is, we're blind to it because we're in the moment, but the movement is social media, and social media is more about personas and personality, not tangible things.
Yeah, I think just to bring that whole circle to Consume Cool, if you go on the About section in the Consume Cool, kind of, you're like, Consume Cool is about everything, Consume Cool is about nothing, Consume Cool is about kind of like paradoxical stuff, but I mean, in a way that is kind of the artsy side of it, where you can kind of, you know, still take it in whatever direction you really want to.
Yeah, because when you just look at the words consume and cool, like what is consumerism and what is cool? Like, was the word cool born out of consumerism, or were people cool before there was such a thing as consumerism?
Interesting.
Because I don't think it's something you thought about when it was necessity. You know what I mean? Like
it was cool to drink a Coke.
Yeah, but it's cool because they're telling you it's cool, and we're all believing it. You know, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think also to play on that matter, I mean, you know, let's say you do like a Dragon Ball Z remix. You know, kids from the '90s will be like, "Oh, I connect with that because it was cool to watch back then." You know, it's kind of trendy now. You know,
nostalgia is a huge like focal point in like marketing, advertising.
Oh yeah, I would definitely say so. I mean, I actually on a previous show, just to say quickly, we did some research on remakes because it's a big perception that remakes are like overtaking the movie industry.
Oh yeah.
It's actually less remakes are being made now. They're just being marketed more so as remakes.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. It's the nostalgia.
And I recognize too, like living in LA, they advertise movies like it's full court press. You know what I mean? Like, so you'll see the more they advertise, I feel like the worse the movie is, but the more that they'll just get people to go to it one time.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, oh, we made our money back. We're good.
Dude, that's true. That's wild that the actors still get paid the amount they do. I mean,
dude, you know, it's like that again though is it's a well-oiled system. Yeah. Just like fashion is. Yeah. You know, art is to an extent, but it's very gray, you know.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. I mean, is it gray when you say, I mean, in terms of like the buyer situation and just because there's, you know, it's not like, oh, I need 100 of these shirts. I need 1,000 of these shirts.
Yeah, I think with art, but you're seeing with like these streetwear brands like Supreme and all that is the perception of value is based off of something that's not real. You know, just like art is like, oh, this is a $400 million piece of art. Well, why? Because somebody bought it for that, and that's really what it is. It's like it's only worth whatever somebody's willing to pay for it.
That's a very good point.
How do you convince someone, you know?
I mean, yeah, that's just to relay that to a major point in regards to the stock market. I mean,
they're identical. Yeah.
The stock market is the same way. Like when you sell a stock, it's not as simple as selling it. Someone has to buy the stock at whatever price you want to sell it at, or you said it. You know, I mean. It's very interesting.
My friend the other day that I was with, he was saying that about the stock market. He's like basically when a stock goes down, he's like your cool points go down. So like you have these points. He's like you just lost cool points. You know.
Wow, that's actually really clever. I mean, it essentially is. You know, like the whole Musk having to step down and pay the $20 million, like because he set the price at 420, like that made his personal cool points go up.
Yeah.
But,
Elon Musk with that.
Yeah.
Was that having to do with that whole?
Going private.
Oh, going private, yeah.
Yeah, he set the price, but he set the price at 420, and apparently, like, some report got out that he did it to make a joke with his girlfriend. Yeah. Probably, I mean, dude, there's probably some, like, Daily Mail article, you know, like, not to be a jerk, but they made him step down as the chairman, he's the chairman of the board, he's still the CEO, but he made, the DOJ also made Devin Tesla pay $20 million, respectively.
Wow.
Which is probably, I mean, no for them.
Hey, you know.
Yeah.
Consume cool.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah. Dude, that would be a sick one. A Tesla thing.
Well, I did a Tesla like logo on a shirt, but it wasn't like didn't get that big of a response.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess that T, you know, is not completely synonymous with Tesla.
Like you can mimic like the fonts, but like I feel like the big ones for me with like the imitating logos was like Marlboro cigarettes.
Okay.
Pizza Hut. Pizza, Avian water.
Oh wow! Okay, that I think I've seen that one.
Yeah, and then there were a couple other ones that I think were bigger too.
Do you generally like have a feeling, or is that kind of like? With that, do you have a feeling you'll be like, oh, this one's definitely going to be big, or are you surprised sometimes?
No, because with that whole concept, I really just kind of took basically everything that I thought was like. You know, seen by everybody. Like, everybody knew what it was.
Influential stuff.
Everything that was influential, yeah. So everything that was, like, so there was no, like, personal attachment to it. So, like...
Interesting.
You know, I'd do, like, the Tesla one, and there wouldn't be that much engagement, but I'd be like, I don't care because I have, like... I think there was, like, 160 logos on shirts. Uh-huh. And, it just didn't really... it didn't faze me because I had so many of them.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I didn't make the logos. I have nothing to do with logos.
You were just like on to the next one.
Yeah, I was kind of removed from the whole like process, which is nice too.
That must be a way different trip out of art. I mean, obviously you're still into the process. You want people to, buy your clothing, but like that must be different just to like be a little more removed from that, like as like something you've painted and worked on, like feels like more of like your baby. I would feel
when
like
you put a lot of time and effort into something, there becomes kind of a personal attachment to it. So when people don't, engage with it, you kind of feel like, oh, I wasted my time. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
With something that's so easily done, like, okay, the logos, I'm not going to say they took like a minute or two. Maybe they take 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to make. But then, send it to the printer and then it comes back. I'm like, okay, cool. So like, really it wasn't that much time and effort because logos were already made. The perception of what the logos mean to everybody is already exists.
The effort was kind of just figuring out the concept and actually just doing it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, what would you say about that? Because like, we always like to talk passion to paychecks on here, and something like, maybe stepping out, taking a risk, and doing something creative. I think there's a lot of power to that, and like
there is, yeah.
Taking that actual step though and doing it is the big step. I mean, what was your first foray into the fashion thing? I believe you were saying it was that the one in Paris, or
that was with the Consume Cool.
That was with the Consume Cool.
Yeah, so
okay.
Like, initially, I have another Instagram which is basically more like my personal work. It's just Gordon Holden.
Gordon Holden. We'll put it up there for
two
everyone.
N's at the end.
Okay. Is that how you spell it in real life?
No.
Okay.
It's just there's multiple Gordon Holdens in
the
social media universe. So.
Yeah, I could see that.
But I did T-shirts actually like when I first had the inception of Consume Cool. I was just making like images, but then the images I was also like, oh, let's put on the T-shirts.
Okay.
And sold to a couple like stores in New York.
Okay, that's interesting. So the stores in New York that transformed into like a following that
a little bit, but I feel like with that kind of thing with fashion, like you always have to be like on top of it. It's not like a thing that there won't be like a catalyst and then it'll grow from there. You just have to be literally
peaks and valleys.
Trudging. Yeah, it's like you have to keep going to the next person and being like, hey, I work with this person, do you want to do this? You know what I mean? Nobody's really like looking actively like, oh, that's cool. You may get a couple of those, but it's not.
It's a grind.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not commonplace. To
absolutely. To just blow up out of nowhere.
Yeah, completely.
Well, I mean, the only way I feel like that really happens is if you step into the game with like a ton of connections already. Like Kanye was going to be successful in fashion whether his stuff was dope or not.
Yeah, totally. I had one of the shirts that I sold, there was a store in New York called Oak. And, I think it was like a month after I had the shirts in the store. Like one of my friends sent me a picture and was like, yo, Childish Gambino's wearing one of your shirts like in concert, like at, I guess it was in Las Vegas, and he's like singing, he's wearing the shirt.
That's
sick.
Like,
oh, that's cool, like it's gonna blow up from there. But it's like nobody really cares. You know what I mean? It's not like they don't care. It's just that it doesn't have as big of an effect as you think it would.
Okay, how does that? Because the other thing that I've heard is like a lot of companies like overexpose themselves at first to like just sending out a bunch of free stuff, and then like you said, like they'll get a picture of someone wearing it, but it doesn't have a ton of effect. Yeah,
it doesn't really have that much pull unless like that person, let's say that celebrity is actually pushing that shirt too.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, yeah, because they have to be like, at least put the hashtag up. It's like you can take a screenshot of someone wearing your shirt and be like, at Childish Gambino, but it's only going to get to your followers. It's not going to...
But if he puts up something and says like, oh, at Consume Cool, then all those people would, it roll over into like what I'm doing.
Oh, yeah, and then, I mean, you could have people reach out and be like, yo, you want to be a brand ambassador?
Completely, yeah. It can totally go from there, because the way I look at it, especially with social media, is like, there's three types of people on social media. You have trend creators, trend setters, trend followers.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So trend setters are kind of the biggest on social media.
Okay.
Trend creators, they're kind of like middle, but like if a trend follower sees a trend creator, like they won't necessarily get it. There's no like full like real pull,
I see what you mean, because the creator's obviously a bit ahead of the follower. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, That's so interesting. Is there like, I'm not too savvy with Instagram like likes and stuff like that, but is there a point at which like you're like, okay, I have this many followers, like it's gonna be like pretty good from here on out? Or
I don't know. You can definitely overanalyze the whole social media aspect of things.
Can you?
And I think people, in a way, are doing that, especially with like startups and like businesses, because of like, how do you get people to see what you're doing so you can genuinely bring them to like what you're doing?
Yeah.
But it's it's this like thing that we think is serendipitous. It's just like ads that pop up on your computer, like you think this thing, you're like, whoa, how did I'm totally into these things. It was like, but no, it's like it's algorithms and all these like things understanding what it is that you're into.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, just to play into that aspect in regards to social media, like all these places like have a way to gain more followers on photos, a way to gain more likes, but you have to pay them money, and they're like professional agencies that do that for a living. So I mean,
I mean, like that's a profession. Yeah, like SEO and like content marketing is probably one of the biggest things that like startups and companies are like looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How just a little change of subject here. When it comes to the clothing, how do you, obviously, other than, you paid this much for the material, the labor cost this much, or how, can I ask how, like, the price pointing works on shirts? Like, do you, like...
How does it work?
Yeah, exactly. When you set a price on a shirt, like, do you have to analyze that and be like, I want this price because I want it to be a certain perception of my company to look at this value inherently like a stock?
It's always perceived value. Like, even companies that are selling shirts for, like, $300 a shirt...
Mm-hmm.
They're not spending any more than like $5 or $6 on the shirt production, So their margins are just huge. That's why it's such a valuable thing.
Okay, so it's a bit different in that sense. It's the margins just grow.
Yeah, the T-shirt itself is not actually better in quality in like a practical sense. It's just how we think it is,
Really?
Yeah.
So I mean, it'll be made on the same type of
you
wool,
might have
cotton.
different like cotton, like spun cotton, or like different like thicknesses or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like a cotton blend or something like that. But like, there's really no distinguishable like difference of what's more valuable. Other
than what people are gonna pay for what price.
Unless you're gonna be like, oh, this is like Egyptian cotton, which would make it $10 more. Really, it's really not making that big of a jump.
Wow. So I mean, even if they're gonna pay, that extra to make it as flawless as possible, it's still gonna be huge margins.
Yeah, totally.
Interesting. How much does the whole, like, we talked a little bit about people like Gambino wearing stuff. How much does like getting into like the whole like fashion show scene, does that play into the fix for you at all?
Oh, fashion shows? No, I've never done that. I think where I'm coming from though is not like fashion in a sense kind of is a farce now.
Interesting. In what sense?
I just think like everybody's wanting to be a brand.
Uh-huh.
Like, let's say ConsumeCool is a brand, but like it doesn't have a product. So like everyone wants to be a brand, they don't really have a product either. But the easiest thing to do is fashion in a way.
That's crazy.
So like t-shirts and hats and sweatshirts and sweatpants, and then like, oh, if it gets a little bit bigger, we'll make like denim, or we'll do like a jacket, some kind of like supplemental thing that's a little bit like pricier.
Interesting. Would you venture into any of those? I know you said the doors are wide open for you in any sense.
I mean,
I don't want to give any plans away, but
no. I have no like set plans in that regard with like fashion. I think fashion was just a good jumping off point.
Yeah.
For what it is, because the easiest way to get to, I think, people is fashion, because fashion is so like easily communicated.
Oh yeah, you could. I mean, just for example, take the GoPro and jump off a freaking cliff with the Consume Cool shirt on, and it's like, yo, the Consume Cool lifestyle, boom.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because my girlfriend watches a lot of like Bravo shows. It's like housewives and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's always that stuff, like the housewives, like one of the women she has like a skinny girl like alcohol company, and like she's always like kind of promoting it.
Stacked off that.
Yeah, and it's like there's a new show, I forget what it's called. Unanchored. It's like people that go on like a boat for vacation, but they were all wearing like the same like shirt, and I was like, what is that thing? And then I was like, oh, it's one of the guys on the boat's like company.
No way, and he
like,
just got everyone.
I get what it is.
Wow, so that's the inside plug.
Yeah, the inside plug is because then you go, what is it that they're actually selling? You're like,
you got to send.
oh, that's what they're selling, just a shirt.
You just got to send crates of Consume Cool shirts to Bravo.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would love to see some housewives wearing Consume Cool.
Dude, your girlfriend would go nuts if she saw. That would be insane.
Oh well, actually, she follows all these like, let's say celebrities. A to D-list celebrities, and Spencer Pratt from The Hills.
Okay.
I guess she was following him on Instagram or whatever, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I have a PO box if you want to send me some stuff." So she was like, "Yo, you should send him some Consume Cool stuff." So I did, and he did like a video like shout out.
I saw that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's sick. Yeah. It's I wonder. Of course, there's millions of people who would sit down and do analytics, like we were saying, on like, oh, how much effect did that have? Did you see like a larger jump in like, let's say, your followers on Instagram after that happened, or?
A little bit. I
wouldn't
say it was like.
It wasn't insignificant, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it was like noticeable. Let's say maybe I got like a couple hundred followers.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Which is
though.
cool. Yeah, I mean. I didn't even really care at that point about like the followers because you can go to this point where like you're very like analytical and logical about things.
Of course.
Or you can just be excited about that like happening.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, that like serendipitous thing. Be like, I sent it to him with really no expectation of him like doing anything with it. Just being like, oh, this is cool, whatever, and then like throwing it in as a pile of like fan mail.
And then he pumped it through the roof by
like,
exceeding expectations.
Cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. You know, I mean, in that regard though too, you do have to give yourself credit for actually making it happen, but also the stuff is cool. So I mean, the stuff is it's nice looking. There's a reason Gambino wore it on stage. Like, dude, his concerts are huge, like sell out crowds. Like, he's thinking about what he's wearing on stage.
I mean, he's like more than mainstream now, being in like Star Wars movie.
Dude, he's huge. I mean, I saw him in like a Forbes 30 under 30 list, like, 6-7 years ago or something, and I honestly didn't really know much about him.
Yeah.
Actor, comedian, musician, and I was like, whoa, this guy's gonna blow up, and he definitely did to a whole nother level.
Fully.
Because he's like international. Speaking to that, do you speak any other languages?
I don't.
You don't? Have you ever thought about like any international play, like anywhere else?
Oh yeah, totally. I work with a company in Italy.
Oh, dope.
A magazine called Cura Magazine.
Cura Magazine.
Yeah,
shout out.
Contemporary art magazine.
Oh, awesome.
They're based out of Rome, but they have space in Milan as well.
That's awesome.
And they're kind of like they're one of the publications like in the art world that's kind of at like all the kind of art fairs, and they're kind of like, I wouldn't say grassroots, but they're just kind of like under the radar, but like really cool stuff.
Yeah, okay. Well, shout out. Sorry, what's their name again?
Cura, Cura.
Shout out to Cura. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Italy. So that's, obviously Italy is huge into, any type of
and I did,
fashion.
And the other thing I did was I worked with Bureau Borscht, which is like a design firm out of Germany.
Okay.
They did like the Balenciaga like redesign, like the logo redesign. It's like a design firm, and we just did like a t-shirt, like a collaborative t-shirt together.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That must have been pretty fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was very interesting, like working back and forth.
Yeah, the collab scene in clothing must be kind of wild.
Just anything. I feel like collaborations in any kind of creative endeavor is just really what's happening now.
It's definitely what's happening. It's yeah. I feel like it used to be a time was like within like just at least the streetwear community when it was wild when like they would do crossovers, but now it's like wild almost when they don't.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, it's like it's become such commonplace that when they don't, you're kind of taken aback from it. You're like, whoa.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you if you saw we were talking and it was pretty interesting in regards to what did you call it? Appropriating with a brand appropriation, brand reappropriation, or
appropriation? Yeah,
taking
something that exists and like appropriating it to fit what your message is.
Exactly. I just saw Diamond's Christmas release. They're doing like a huge Coke one with the polar bear. Like,
oh wait, is it?
Diamond Supply Company is
really?
doing a shirt with like the Coke
with Coca-Cola?
brand. I'm sure it must be with.
I mean, I think that everybody's been asking me about it and like talking to me about it with the idea of like working with Coca-Cola.
Huh.
And I like the concept. And prior to that, it seemed like everybody was kind of like, oh, they're gonna sue you or this kind of thing. But I think really, I mean, to be honest with you, I think that they would see it as a beneficial marketing tool as opposed to something that they should fight.
Dude, absolutely.
You know?
Like with how stuff is right now, I mean,
yeah,
dude, to have everyone from, you know, like, I know LeBron drinks Sprite, but that's Coca-Cola Company. But
completely, yeah,
I'm just like that they would have everyone from LeBron to like an up and coming, you know, artist like with an artist with an up and coming clothing brand.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say up and coming artist. You've been in that game for a minute.
I mean, yeah, about the same, but like I never felt like I was actually like a player in the game. I always felt like I was an outside person like doing stuff for it. But
why is that? I mean, if you care,
I don't know. I think maybe just because I never went to art school, so I never had that idea that I'm an artist.
Similar, like, I mean, chefs haven't not gone to culinary school or something like that.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Like I'll make art because that's what people call it, or I'll make like visual creations or whatever. But like I don't necessarily want to say like, oh, I'm an artist, because that with that comes like a lot of like, you know, responsibility, but also like a lot of like justifying to people that don't understand it, because then they'll say, well, what is that? What do you do? When you say
yeah, that's wild. Yeah, when you say responsibility, do you mean like responsibility to not only yourself but like the art community as a whole to represent it well?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because sometimes you're just not in the mood, because like people are very curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
But people are also, I think we're at that point in time where we're always just comparing.
Yeah.
And usually it goes from like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm an artist. And then like you can see the wheels moving, and then they just jump to, well, do you make any money doing that?
Oh wow, that's like the basic conversation that you'll have with most people in regards to it.
That's one that would like stick out in my mind. And
it's one of the top 5.
Times. Yeah, it happens multiple times, because you're just kind of like, you don't even really care what I do. You just want to know to compare it to yourself, which is fine.
Yeah, but I think in a sense that's almost like them kind of saying, oh, I took this, you know, I'm working a desk getting paid such and such a day. I just want to make sure the mortifying reality that I'm giving up on any type of dream that I have suits my perception of how much you earn.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've heard it like when I was starting off doing art, like it's like you'll never make a living, and you'll never achieve what it is you want to achieve. So like I kind of took that, I guess, as a challenge in a way.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm not like at a point where I want to be, but like it's a journey, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's not the result that makes you who you are, it's the journey of it, you know?
Of course, no, absolutely. They've done studies within like life too, you know, once you get to, you know, $100,000 a year, there's really, or I think it's like $80,000 a year, there's not like much like tangible level of happiness that increases based on.
When you're young, when you're 24 and like just out of college and you're making $80,000 a year, dude, the world is your oyster.
Yeah.
But then when you're 35 and have 2 kids and you're still making $80,000 a year, you're kind of like gonna start banging your head against the wall as to like where you can go from there.
And you're going to the art show and seeing someone who, you know, is doing something dope, whether they're still working a job too, but they're doing, or whether you're going to stand-up comedy and being like, shit, I should have taken a risk and got on stage for that open mic.
It's not for everyone. Like,
it's not.
Yeah, so
that's
like,
true. No, I mean, one of my dad's best friends loved working behind a desk. Like it was like his dream, and he did it his whole life.
Was he an actuarial?
What? Sorry, was it?
Was he an actuary?
Oh no. He did like mutual fund investment stuff. Like I mean, I don't know.
That's that like they're really good with numbers, and they don't really want to talk to people, and it's like cool.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
And they have like a very perfect like place and thing for them to do that doesn't kind of like force them to do something they don't want to do. Yeah,
I think, I mean, to that extent, just to a greater point, that would be like just self-realization is so important in life.
Completely, yeah.
I mean, whether it's self-realization and being able to point and criticize and take constructive criticism, or whether it's self-realization and picking the path that you know is going to provide you with whatever you see as happiness.
Yeah, what are we looking for?
Exactly. Whether
individually.
Yeah. Like if you find out that happiness is, you know, grinding at a law firm, making partner, earning, you know, millions of dollars a year, then that more power to you for going ahead and doing it.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Hey, it's to each their own, really.
To each their own. And dude, I would frankly, I would call that turning passion into paychecks, just in a different way. It's more so your passion is for paychecks.
Completely, yeah. It's your motivation. Like, at the end of the day, and this is a thing that I've just kind of recently been like struggling with, is just like motivation to do what it is that you're doing, because when you work by yourself, everything has to come from yourself. Like, you have to be self-motivated. So, like, sometimes when you wake up, you're not motivated to do anything. But, like, if you worked for somebody, you know, your motivation is fear because you don't want to get fired, but you also get a paycheck. You know, like, for me, I'll be like, okay, I'll wake up, and this week of, like, working, it's not like I get paid for it, for, like, my time and my effort, but hopefully the end result of what I've been working for can eventually get some kind of money for, you know?
Well, and like you said, it's the journey. That's
the journey.
And to be honest, it's like the other thing that needs to be said about that is if you're doing something where it's like stressful every single day and causing you anxiety, maybe that's not the right situation for you, or you find ways to, like, you know, deal with it. Stress, yeah, exactly. And that's, I feel like that can, when you break through it, you can almost like create, like, for example, like if I break through the stress, maybe I'll put out like 4 episodes in a week. Totally. Break through the stress, maybe you come out with the whole concept for the next line, you know?
You're inspired. Like, that's what we're kind of always doing, is we're jockeying for that next inspiration. Yeah. And it's really just kind of like a feeling, you know, that you get that's kind of like, all right, let's do this. Because, like, sometimes you'll have these ideas that are like, oh, it's good, but you'd never really act on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Has that? Would you care to? Do you have a specific example of one that, like?
No, not necessarily. But it's definitely happened to me.
Yeah. You just can't, like, point to it.
I can't point, like, to specifics.
I know. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But they're just like these generalized feelings. I think everybody in turn, like, feels.
Oh yeah, and then, like, after that, I feel like sometimes for me that's when I get, like, let down by myself. Is the next day after I didn't put that idea into fruition, I'll be like, shoot, I should have at least tried
or
just
done something.
Yeah, exactly. Or, like,
because all we have is, like, our actions. Like, our thoughts never really, well, you can't get anything if you don't materialize your thought.
Yeah, actions manifest. Action. Yeah.
And you know, it's just one of those things where we have expectations now because we live in such a time of, like, I don't want to say that it's like survival is, like, granted, but, like, compared to 300 years ago, like, you woke up and you're like, all right, I hope I don't die today, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's just things, and, like, now we just have this, like, idea of, like, expectations, and that's really what's getting in the way of everybody being, like, content with things, because when expectations don't meet up with reality, that's the only time you become angry, aggravated, or, like, any kind of negative emotion.
Yeah, let's say you were super, like, just thinking, like, oh man, he's gonna repost my, Spencer Pratt, and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But you did the opposite.
Yeah.
I've been trying to do that with
sometimes. Cause
I know. You can't help it. You can't help it.
Nature
you can't help it.
Yeah.
And, well, just to speak to that too, like, I think you said something super powerful within that. Is like, you're fighting to get that feed of inspiration, and, like, just to be honest, like, seeing cats like you and other people that we've had on the podcast, like, you know, killing it in their own regards, like, is inspiring, just to, you know, find out more about their journey and their story, and, like, you know, like, kind of some insights into what makes people like that tick, because it's definitely it's a different lifestyle, definitely, but it's so, I feel like, rewarding when you manifest those thoughts into reality, like you said.
Yeah, when you can get to a point of, like, fully understanding who you are and what you're doing. And I'm not completely there yet.
Yeah.
It's still, like, a thing that I'm trying to strive for.
Interesting.
But again, it's like circling back to the social media thing, it's like we're always bombarded with, like, everybody else and what everybody's doing. So, like, that whole, what's that? There was a quote, I want to say it was, like, Teddy Roosevelt or somebody said that said comparison is a thief of joy. But, like, all we do nowadays is compare.
Of course.
And it's hard not to, because all you do is see everybody else all the time and what they're doing. And just to have that, like, alone time to, like, do what it is that you want to do without even sharing it with anybody, without doing it, just kind of getting that, like, momentum towards, like, inspiring yourself, you know?
Yeah, wow.
Something that I think, you know, I don't know if humans have had it in the past, which I'm sure they have, but it just seems like we have kind of gone into a route that's we're kind of losing it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. it's so wild. Just like again that there's like agencies out there, like agencies that find people jobs are huge now too. Like that's just like insane.
Job boards and headhunters and all that.
Yeah, it's I mean, and again, more power to them. They're getting people to get a living. So I mean, that's really cool.
Yeah.
If that's what drives you, that's awesome. But it's so wild that there's a huge market for people who get other people jobs now.
Yeah.
We definitely have more jobs than we need.
It's one of those things too that like people kind of justify their existence by how much they make, but there's always gonna be somebody who makes more than you too.
Wow.
In the same breath, you know.
So relativity is a huge
it's like
power.
Just realize, because it's going to be inevitable that you're going to compare yourself to people, and it goes back to that age-old saying of like keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
Like, just keep it relative to who you're comparing yourself to. Don't be comparing yourself to Steve Jobs and that kind of stuff, because there's so many guys I know or people that have did startups in like tech and stuff.
Yeah.
And like they just fully, you can see they're like imitating this idea that they want to be Steve Jobs. But it's also hard not to, because it's like, yeah, maybe Steve Jobs is the one who inspired them, but like ultimately be your own person.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, like you can't get up there and just tell other people's jokes on an open mic. That would be.
Yeah. I mean, today you also get called out for it.
Dude, big time.
Now, yeah.
Social media is big with that. YouTube is huge with that. That's super interesting. I mean, I think how you were saying relativity like plays into how you were saying, I almost think of, you said I think of myself as an outsider in the art community. You were thinking because relatively you didn't.
Yeah.
How about, we were talking a little bit before about how you played college sports in Vermont. You played lacrosse, I believe.
Yeah, lacrosse at University of Vermont.
Yeah, shout out to University of Vermont.
Yeah,
That's some.
Catamounts.
What is it?
Go Catamounts.
Catamounts. What's a catamount?
It's like a mountain lion.
Dude, do they have those fuckers in Vermont?
Yeah, I think it's a species of mountain lion that is kind of just like to that region, and maybe like Quebec.
Dude, wow, that's wild. So does that? I mean, obviously, to play basically any high-level collegiate sport, albeit lacrosse too, which is a heavy contact sport, and in certain regards, of course.
Yeah.
That like has to play into your motivation. I mean, I'm sure you were like waking up grinding every morning, then having to go to class on like an insane schedule.
Yeah, especially in college, because it was your job. I mean, when you get a scholarship to go play somewhere, it's like you're there for that reason.
Wow.
You're not there to like go to your bio like class that's like 3 hours long. Like, yeah, you should be doing that, but like usually sometimes you like prioritize in like weird ways too, because when a sport takes up so much time of your day, you're just so exhausted that you're just kind of like, I don't really want to do anything else.
Yeah, just like.
So I actually ended up playing 3 years.
Oh, okay.
But I have a twin brother that we went to University of Vermont together.
That's awesome.
And he played 4 years. He was the captain actually his senior year.
Wow.
And I think it was just at that point where we kind of because before it was we lived together our whole lives. We went to college together, and then at that point we kind of like, as Robert Frost said, a road diverged.
Yeah. And that's interesting. I mean, do you guys have that like? On the field, did you guys have that like crazy like twin telepathy,
sure,
like the Sedin brothers?
It was more like in high school that we had that like crazy intuitive like aspect, whereas like you could just. It wasn't like you saw where they were; you just knew where they were.
He was gonna make that run to that flanker.
College was a different Division I level sports is a different beast because, the more I thought about it, I realized like you're taking all of these people that were the best at their high school or their region or their state or whatever, and you're putting them on the same team. And at that point, you really kind of just like you mash all these egos together, because they're all the best from where they're coming from.
So theoretically, I mean, like physically, like. And talent-wise, they're all pretty equal, but it's like the ego, the mental aspect. That's the kind of separator.
Yeah, totally. And it's very much a separator. Yeah, because like physical acumen is like everybody's kind of at their peak. There might be different like sizes and stuff.
No doubt.
Across like you have dudes that'll be like big muscular dudes. You have like small guys that are just like really quick and like can score well. But
yeah,
I definitely see a lot of a relationship with like sports and life and how you pursue them. Yeah.
I was gonna ask that. I was seeing on your Instagram you have the Dodgers with the consume cool on the back. That's super cool. Like have you? I know you've done some work with like some sports stuff, but like, have you planned on like some more sports collabs or whether it be reaching out or just doing your own?
I mean, I did some of those because I kind of like experimented with like the whole idea of like fandom or fanaticism. And before that, I liked sports. I played sports, but I was never like a fan. Like, oh, this is my team and this is who I like. So when I moved to LA, I was like, I'm gonna start following the Dodgers and like followed like every game, like watched it. And then after that, I just kind of realized I was like, and I'm not trying to downplay like people that are fans of sports. But
yeah.
For me personally, I realized it was a lot of investing a lot of my time in something that I technically had nothing to do with.
Yeah, that is kind of...
So you kind of, like, when they lose, you get, like, all weirdly... when a team loses, you kind of get, like, oh, this sucks. And then after that year, I kind of, like, started following, like, again the next year, but then I was just like, I don't care. Like, they could win, they could lose. I'm just going to, like, remove
that's the thing, too, is when they win, it's like, yeah, you get euphoria. Of course, you get brief euphoria, but, like, those players get to celebrate being champion for the whole year. It's like,
yeah,
you're not sitting there being like, yeah, I was watching that game. Like,
yeah,
I did it,
Superstition kind of, like, starts to play into it, too. Like,
oh, yeah, man, totally. I mean, we were talking a bit about, soccer jerseys, football jerseys, and football, like, fans in general. Like, the fandom out there is, I mean, talk about fandom. Like
the leagues and...
Oh, yeah, dude. In the Premier League, I mean, it's not a sport to English men and women. It's a religion.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, the way my brother talked, because he was a fan, like, of Liverpool, too.
Liverpool!
So, he was saying he likes Liverpool, but he's very interested in, like, kind of, like, the obscure teams that are, like... What are the levels below Premiership?
There's like the Championship, then there's League 1, League 2, League 3. Like, it goes all the way down.
He started collecting kind of like team kits and like paraphernalia from like teams from like League 2 and like
that's
stuff
sick.
that were like you'd never really find from like unless going to that area or going to that like stadium,
Yeah, that would always be the thing that I would do. I would try to find like obscure jerseys from like not necessarily the lower leagues. That's some clever stuff. I mean, that's almost some stuff that you could play into Consume Cool in a way, because like some of those lesser known teams would look kind of cool.
I mean, he had a jersey that he was wearing. I want to say it was like. What is Millwall sound like?
Millwall's, yeah, they're like Chelsea's big rival, but they're in the lower league now.
They're in the lower league. Okay, it was another. It wasn't Millwall. It was another one, but it was like an obscure team from London. And he was wearing it, and some guy was like, "Oh, I know what that is." So it really becomes kind of like
it's
an insider. So he's like, "Oh, that guy obviously like follows all this stuff," and it just resonated with him to kind of like speak up and say, "Oh, I know what that is."
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, with something like that too. I mean, because of course, I wear Liverpool jerseys around all the time.
Yeah.
And people will, by and large, I'll get at least one comment. So that's cool. But having that obscure connection with someone instantly kind of like. It's not like they're going to sit there and become best friends every time, but like you could genuinely be like, oh, let's watch the next match together or something. Like, there's not a lot of
connection too. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what I think people are trying to do too, is like connect with other people.
Oh yeah.
And right now, like with Consume Cool, like when you take these things that are so known by everybody, like it does kind of connect people in a way.
Oh, of course. Again, because like I'm telling you, if you'll just see that shirt and you'll inherently have a nostalgia or be some like feeling of like, oh, that's popular to wear, so I want to be a part of that popular wave. It's something that is, if we could fully see inside the human mind, there's something there that we can't fully analyze that does that. It's wild.
I mean, pop culture is really kind of one of those things where like if somebody's talking about something, you want to feel like you're a part of it too, so you're going to do your best to know everything that there would be to know about like popular culture at that time.
Absolutely.
People don't like feeling left out.
Oh, no one likes to be out of the loop. Even the people who no one likes to be out of the loop.
Yeah. The bottom line is that's so true. And it's like also like we kind of know more about what we let's say like celebrities than we would know about like our family. Like a lot of people, because like, I know more about Johnny Depp than I would know about like my mom's like my great grandmother and like where they came from.
Yeah.
But it's just also like how readily available it is too.
What do they say? The Kardashians are more known than congresswomen.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, but that's interesting. You know what I've also like thought you're the Consume Cool brand. Have you guys got any like feedback from like the skating community, the surfing community? Because it does kind of give a certain amount of that, or just like kind of the GoPro community in a way, or is that not?
Not necessarily, like a little bit in the skate community. I'd say, okay, we can just summarize it as like action sports.
Yeah, that's a good
like,
way.
Surf skate is like, there's so many people within that culture that are doing things of their own that it's like a hard thing to be like an outside one to be like, oh, this is like part of us. Like, yeah, some of the art, like surf or skate art kids would be more into it.
I see what you mean though, but and also, I mean, you don't want to just seem like you're like, oh, I want to be this, oh, I want to be that, oh, I want to be this, and try to fit into too many communities.
I made like Consume Cool like skate decks and stuff like that. And then I said I did the surf wax, the cola scented surf wax. So it's like, you know, you kind of think about these like products or accessories that these industries are making. Yeah. And just kind of like, you know, just test the water, see how it works. Yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, too. I mean, if it comes from a place of like, you know, genuine, like, hey, I respect your community, and I'm trying to give you guys like a good, cool little surf wax here, then they'll respect. I mean, real recognizes real for sure. Yeah, totally. Real recognizes real, but also like right now with, again, it's always coming back to like this point in time. Like, I'm from Connecticut. I would have never surfed or done anything like that hadn't I had the availability or like seen all that stuff to be inspired to go do it. And when, I mean, at what point was there a turning point like of being in Connecticut, of just like seeing like, you know, I mean, because you definitely seem in tune with like the California culture, especially now. Like, I think when I was like in Connecticut, like in high school and stuff, people would be like, "Oh, you seem so California. You'd be into California." I'm like, okay, what does that mean? So like, I kind of started like watching like surf things. We lived an hour and a half from the beach. Really? So, but then, you know, like summers we go down to like Rhode Island or Cape Cod or whatever. Yeah. And I saw people doing it and it was cool, so I'd try it out. I was no good at it, but then I'd be like, oh, I want to be good at this. So you do it, and then you kind of felt like you're a part of something also. Of course. You know, like a scene, especially there. It's not like hundreds of thousands of people surf like here. No. But like there is like every time you went to the beach, it was the same people. So like it became more of a community thing, you know. That's crazy. So I mean, it'd be like those specific breaks where you see people, but it'd just be like there in the water, everyone. So you'd like see people, you'd recognize people, you'd talk, whatever. But it was cool. It was something that I felt like I was a part of. But what I was trying to say from that is industries become something that like are just trying to sell to a mass market. Like surfing as an industry or skateboarding as an industry, they're trying to sell to whoever is going to want to buy it. So they're going to try to sell the idea of surfing or the idea of skateboarding. It's like, this is a cool culture. You want to be a part of this. Wow. And I think that's kind of what I was kind of taken in by at the time. But, you know, I think I stuck with it enough to be like, oh yeah, I enjoy it for what it is and not for what it represents. Yeah. There's also something you just to, I mean, I think that also plays into your point about Consume Cool, the stuff that you're doing now with the branding. Yeah. It seems like you've always had a sort of interest, maybe not in one particular specific, like not just like Coca-Cola, not just surfing, not just, or action sports, not just energy drinks. It's kind of like you seem very interested in like what people are watching, how they react to it, like what they're drawn to, really. Like, how good or bad. How are you drawn to this, and why are you drawn to this? Because when you think of like surfing, or let's take even like photography. Like photography is like, it's a thing everybody does now. Yeah. But like if you see a guy with a camera that's, you know, $5,000 camera, does that make him a good photographer? No. Not necessarily. So it's like you go to the beach and you see a guy with like, you know, a $2,000 surfboard, like brand new surfboard, like the best wetsuit, and you're kind of like, is he? I mean, does that make him a good surfer? It's like, no. It's just like he's taken in by the kind of like allure of having the best. Yeah, it's like people are collectors, right? So it's like, I'm gonna collect something that's really good. There's not the idea of like practicality and like, oh, I'm not good at this, so I'm going to try it out with something that I bought at like a thrift store. It's like, no, I got to have the best first before I go do it.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's interesting. Do
you
ever...
Consumerism, that really is just like, that's the part below the tip of the iceberg where consumerism lies, you know?
Yeah, of the consume cool. I mean, that's, and obviously, what else, just to tie into that point, or do you have some other, like, interesting, like, influences, whether it be, you know, do you have any, you know, Connecticut influence you think in your work? I don't know what that, I don't know what that would entail, really.
Yeah, that's a hard thing, because I think, we'll say New England as a whole is just so old in terms of comparing it to California.
That's very true.
So, like, what it has is, like, I was very taken into by, like, the history of it. Like, Mark Twain lived in Hartford, which was, like, where I grew up.
Okay. That's the capital, right?
It is the capital, yeah. So Mark Twain lived there, and I was kind of, like, curious by that growing up, and...
Twain is a wild dude.
Yeah, Twain was... I mean, he had a very crazy life and, like, lived it to the fullest. But, you know, in my mind, I'm like, what attracted him to Hartford? And reading kind of all the stuff about it, like...
What was it?
Hartford at the time was actually kind of, let's say, late 1800s, early 1900s, was kind of considered, like, the Silicon Valley of
up
that
and
era.
coming. And
yes, like, all people in technology, like, there was people, like, working on, like, insurance. Insurance was, like, starting to be a thing.
Wow,
it was the insurance capital of the world. And then,
was that the steamboats, too, were huge there?
Steamboats, no. I think that was, I mean, definitely more like Midwest, like Mississippi had more. But he came from there. But he liked the idea because Connecticut River goes up, so he liked being by the river, but he liked kind of like
the more peaceful
like,
kind of.
Yeah, close to New York, close to Boston, but like Hartford was a happening city. Like
yeah.
everybody was going there to like try to see like the next big thing.
That's awesome.
I mean, was it Colt factories? So like Colt revolvers was, you know, they invented like the
that's Hartford
reloading. Yeah, it's Hartford.
Wow, are they still based there?
They are, but it's not what it was in the
1800s,
you know?
Yeah, of course. That's interesting. I didn't know all that about Hartford. I mean, I'm being from the East Coast. I should know a little more.
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, in New England, there's a lot of like small cities that had like a lot of industrial aspects to it.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we don't kind of need that, they're just kind of I'd just say like abandoned in a way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there's something to be said. I mean, like you said, Twain kind of dug it because, you know, you could be there, but you also had the proximity to huge cities like New York at the time. I'm sure was like, and I think sometimes about San Diego, that's what I dig about San Diego. It's like the proximity to LA is close enough.
Oh yeah.
The traffic's been a beast down here lately, but
that's why I told you I lived here for 2 years. I loved it, but when it came to like actually working with people, they were mostly in LA. I could take the train up, you know, you jump on the Metro Link or whatever.
Yeah, it's super nice in there.
And it was cheap, so it was easy, but like it was just hard. It was just hard to like get things going with people kind of at that distance. So making the move up there was just easier. I
know what you mean. I mean, at one point, I probably will. You know, in regards to that.
I mean, I can definitely see myself being down here later in life, retired life, because when I was living here, like I felt like a retired person. I was like, you know, it's like go to the beach every day and then be like, all right, what stuff do I have to get done? Luckily, I found that connection with San Diego Art Institute at the time.
Yeah, that was just you grinding and pushing, or what?
Yeah, a collector that was buying my work at the time was saying that she was friends with the director at the time at the museum. So I reached out to her and was like, hey, I've got this project Consume Cool I'm working on. Would love to like see what we can do together. And she, you know, it's like she literally emailed back in like 20 minutes, was like, this is awesome. Like, let's get something going.
That's incredible.
She came up to Encinitas and like checked out my studio and stuff. So we started like really kind of snowball working on stuff together.
Uh-huh.
And then I moved to LA, and then she moved to, I want to say Tucson, became the director of the Tucson.
That's interesting.
Museum of Contemporary Art in Tucson.
That's probably super nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, all these institutions are kind of great in a sense because they can fund like projects that artists are doing.
Oh yeah. Well, down, you know, just speaking to that real briefly, in San Diego, I know like the family who owns Qualcomm give a tremendous amount to like the art institutes and stuff. And the San Diego Symphony, I was at like a thing where they repurpose movies and they have a whole symphony play the track.
Oh, cool.
So like the dialogue pops in, but then they play the actual music. It was
That's awesome.
wild, and I feel like that in a certain way relates how they're kind of repurposing like a classical music vibe in kind of a new and more accessible, youthful way.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing movies like the Harry Potters, La La Land.
Nice.
They did Love Actually for Christmas.
Cities need some kind of cultural epicenter.
They do.
And like everybody who's kind of creative, if you're living here, you're moving to LA.
That's
in a way,
true.
You know what I mean? So nobody's staying here and being like, let's make San Diego a culturally like relevant and cool city. Because they're like, we'll just drive an hour and a half or 2 hours away and be in LA, one of the biggest ones in the world.
Yeah, you can't argue with that for 2 seconds.
Everyone's a creative there. It's kind of like
everyone. I mean, everyone has like, dude. I'm sure you just run into random people in the studio who's like, oh, in my studio over there, and you're just like, what?
Yeah, I completely. But sometimes it works.
Oh yeah.
Where we, like I was saying, I started golfing recently, and I was golfing one time, and a lot of times the courses are crowded, so you get paired up with other people.
Of course.
And this girl was golfing, and she's like, music. She writes music. She's a producer or whatever.
Awesome.
And she had a lot of like popular stuff, like she's from London, but she was living in LA.
Wow.
She had a lot of popular stuff. I want to say in the late 2000s, so like 2008, 2009, and then kind of took like a break from it because she had a child, but was like, yeah, let's see how we could work together sometime, and you know, like just stuff like that can happen in an instant in LA, you know. Yeah,
absolutely, that's true. What is it? A New York minute, anything can change, but
yes,
LA is like that for like kind of the creatives, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, Silicon Valley is where you want to do if you want tech startups. I mean, I'm sure there's other places now at this point that are getting huge for tech startups as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's wherever you're placing your intention, you kind of need to be in the right place for it to.
That's you know, I have to admit that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and LA it's not even a debatable point.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah, I mean, I tried to play that whole like internet art thing from being kind of removed from like any metropolis.
Huh.
But
okay.
It doesn't really work that well.
Yeah, because I mean, do you find that like for art and stuff that you're like when you sell pieces, you're selling to people in LA or who are going to LA specifically to buy art?
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Yeah, whether they're from there or not, they're going to LA to buy art.
It'll be like they'll have the fairs, or you have like showing in a gallery. Like people that are coming through it's an international crowd. You know.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not going to be like there's not going to be that same crowd at necessarily San Diego art events, even though they're 2 hours down the road.
Yeah, like I mean, living in Encinitas, it was interesting because they have a lot of art shows in it, but it'd be all the same people.
Interesting.
And nobody's really buying art; they're just kind of there for the party.
Huh.
Which is cool too. I mean, that's what an art opening or art show kind of really entails. It's just like free drinks and people show up, and then sometimes people want to buy work.
Yeah, exactly. That's
unless you're an established like name, you know.
Yeah, then it's kind of the work does itself for it by you just hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, I really location is so true for everything in life.
Yeah.
I mean, and timing too. I mean,
the internet's definitely disrupted that in a way.
Completely in terms of like being able to market and stuff. But like you said, in terms of just like, even if you just say it out loud, like I'm an artist living in LA versus I'm an artist living in San Diego, it has a little more pop to it.
Yeah.
And I'm an artist, or a creator living in San Diego. I'm criticizing myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it has a little more pop by saying LA. More people are closer to you, whether it's north or south.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a central location, but also it's just there's people in LA that are just.
But I mean, you'll come. Everybody comes to that realization naturally too. Because I think I was fighting it for a while. I was kind of like, I don't want to move to LA. I don't want to move to New York. I don't want to be a part of those things. But ultimately, you need to be.
Yeah.
As long as you just don't get caught up in the things that are detrimental to your progress.
No matter what they may be.
Sometimes people, they'll move there and be like, I have this intention of being this thing, but get caught up like partying or caught up like doing just things that are not productive, I guess.
Exactly. So they had the intention of going up there to create, and then they kind of forget that intention.
Yeah, sidetracked. It's very easy.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, it is nice to have something like creativity and something like you can go back home after a rough day or something and be like, okay, let's try to bang out a concept for a new shirt, or let's try to bang out a concept for a line of hats or something like that. So having that creative outlet definitely is beneficial, but at times, again, as we were saying before, if you have it and then you don't use it, you'll be like, fuck, I wasted that day.
Yeah.
But dude, I think we kind of covered like most of what we wanted to cover. I wanted to give you
good talk.
Yeah, opportunity though, if you wanted to give any like shout outs, if you wanted to promote anything going on. I mean, I don't want to give away anything. But other than obviously go to the websites, yeah.
Yeah, just go to consumecool.com or check out the Instagram at consumecool. And you can kind of determine what it is for yourself, really.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the cool thing. I appreciate you almost finishing us off on that. That's a perfect summary of it. Is Consume Cool is kind of what you want it to be for yourself.
Yeah, like in the about thing, it's like it's everything and it's nothing at the same time.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I have to. I mean, dude, we might as well just.
You get a little zoom up on the camera.
Yeah, take the time. I could post this picture on the upside, but what is Consume Cool? Consume Cool is the now, but already past its prime. Consume Cool is about what we want but ultimately can't have. Consume Cool is the new and instantly famous. Consume Cool is changing history a little bit and calling it our own. Consume Cool, I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
Consume Cool is business. Consume Cool is art. Consume Cool is nothing. Consume Cool is everything. Consume Cool is an adhesive. Consume Cool is cool.
Yeah.
And that says it all.
Thanks.
So appreciate your time,
yeah.
Mr. Holden. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
and
it's a pleasure.
Thank you guys for tuning into the Oddcast, where we talk about turning passion into paychecks and we meet the awesome people sharing their craft. Thank you very much.
Let's get a little weird. Let's get a little odd. Those sounds you like to hear. We got it going on. It's the Oddcast. It's the Oddcast. It's the Oddcast. It's the Oddcast.